Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This is the morning meeting. It's on the two-way platform, and it's all for you. Thank you for being part of our pre-Easter holiday edition. Dan, Sean, and I are here on behalf of you and the American people to walk you through the day with peace, love, and understanding in this time of this season, more appropriate than ever to extend the presumption of grace to all. So thank you for that.
Right.
Here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand if you'd like to get in the conversation. I already see a few hands up. Would love to see some more, including new people. We've had many new people this week, which we love. If you're watching on X or YouTube, don't put your hand up, but consider yourself part of the same ethos that applies to everyone else. And do not put, say it with me now, smack in the chat. Contest today, name this logo.
Someone just got it.
What'd they say?
Sevilla.
That's correct. Who got that? That's quite something.
The professor.
No, Michael Shaw, did you get it? Michael Shaw maybe got it. All right, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening today, and you can guess where Sean is too if you want. White House, the president, limited schedule today. 12 o'clock, he's participating in the swearing in for Dr. Oz in a very big job to run the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It does not appear he's going out of town for the holiday weekend, although maybe they just haven't announced it yet. No briefing, nothing else. Let's take a look at the pool. Again, the AP not in the pool today. History being made. Although the White House said yesterday that the AP is going to be in the pool maybe this weekend, but not as a wire, but just as part of print. You see Newsmax as a secondary correspondent. And then Sean, for those who don't know, new media seat, Gateway Pundit. They're not a brand new outfit, but who are they?
No, it's a right-leaning, long-time, very right-leaning media site, very pro-Trump. First time I can imagine that they've been in that seat. I'd also say, again, just as a reminder, what the White House did on that print thing is it got rid of wires. So it crammed all the wires into print, and now they're one of 32 as opposed to being one of the 3 wires that gets to be in it every day. So as I said yesterday, this is a real checkmate strategy as far as I was concerned by the White House.
Yeah. All right. Vice President and his family are in Italy. Let's roll tape on that. They left yesterday from Andrews, and you'll see some cuteness here as the Vance family heads off on a formal professional military, diplomatic, economic mission and spring break. Go ahead and roll that, please.
Pardon the cleaning crew.
I was going to say, is that a...
I always have my pool cleaned first thing in the morning. It's just a ritual.
Yeah.
Paul, go ahead and roll. There you go. Super excited, as any kids would be, to take Air Force Two after getting on a helicopter.
How about you to take a helicopter?
Helicopter to a military base, to Air Force Two, to go on spring break. That's pretty good. And now here's 105. Here are the grown-ups also going on the trip.
Sean, does Trump get upset that JD is a little casual here, or is he okay if people travel on official business, of course, casual?
I don't think, I think if you've been around JD long enough, as much as he has, I don't think that this is a surprise. He's a pretty casual guy.
Okay.
All right, so they're in Italy, and then they're going to India. They'll be gone for a while. We pledged to you wall-to-wall coverage on a daily basis. We might even do a special report this weekend of the Vance family spring break. All right, House and Senate remain out. Chris Van Hollen.
By the way, can I give you just a flavor? So there's a pool traveling with the vice president. These are the kind of, oh boy, I just when I got teed up to say it, I wanted to share with you guys the top-notch reporting of the vice president. Shoot, I will give you some flavor if I can in a second. I just
come back to it. Congress is out this weekend. Chris Van Hollen is doing a 4/5 Ginsburg. A 4/5 Ginsburg. Dan, what is a 4/5 Ginsburg?
It's when you go on all the Sunday. Well, the full Ginsburg was when you went on all 5 of the Sunday shows. Because they tape at different times, so you would get to all of them.
Go ahead,
Sean.
Mon frere. The full Ginsburg entails, and this is where unfortunately we're going to have to take points off Mr. Turrentine. Full Ginsburg requires not only doing them, but in studio.
Yeah,
you must be in studio.
Must be in studio.
Yes. Just appearing on all 5 does not qualify for the robe.
Right. Not sure if Van Hollen will be in studio, but he's doing 4 of the 5 shows this weekend. Anyway, all right. Not much else going on except on the topics we're about to discuss. First, let's talk about the economy. Okay. We've talked a lot this week about other topics. I continue to be flooded in my Twitter feed, my X feed, and in my inbox with people from the world of finance. Finance X, what we used to call finance Twitter, is remains on fire. They believe that the chaos and destruction to the world economy caused by Donald Trump is vast and in many cases irrevocable. It's just a parallel universe. Now the markets some days have been very bad, of course. Some days not bad, but there's a group of people in the establishment financial community who say this is the greatest, most foolish act of political and economic suicide any leader ever has ever caused. I just want to give you a sample of some of this because it's overwhelming. It's the first thing we're going to discuss. So 107A, please. This is again a guy that a complete shit show, Spencer Hakamian, zero direction, zero vision, zero discipline, zero coordination, a complete clown show start to finish. He doesn't even have to say what he's talking about. People who follow him know what he's talking about. Next, 107B, please. Vice President Vance wants to restore American manufacturing. Scott Bessent intends to build a free trade coalition against China. The head of the National Economic Advisors wants a weaker dollar. Lutnick wants a permanent new revenue source. Navarro wants to unleash dramatic change. None of them are the president. And the president keeps changing his mind on both the broad goals and specific instruments of his international economic policy. So again, that's the view, not just of Democrats, but of a lot of pro-Republican, pro-Trump, previously pro-Trump people in finance. Here is 103A. Big reporting out there on China as the president and Scott Bessent look to build a coalition of the willing against China, and reporting that economic activity in China and exports from China are slowing down dramatically and not being covered very much, and that this is going to have a major effect not just on American consumers and access to products, but on the world economy. Number one here, see, parts of the U.S. economy are in a sudden stop. There's a wide range of anecdotal evidence and port data indicating import orders from China are halted, being canceled. Okay. Let's go to where am I here? 110, please. Sean Frank. You can skip over this one. Sorry. Oh, so he says he's looking for an off-ramp. So in other words, some of the analysis from people in the economic world is this is such a disaster that they're back to saying not we're going to have to adapt to this and deal with it, but that it's got to stop. That Trump has to find an off-ramp. And now 110, please. Second order effects. Ocean freight out of China is dead. Prices should collapse, right? Well, if it is dead, ships aren't sailing. They're just canceling the voyage instead of losing money on the cargo. So ships are waiting around for weeks, waiting to fill up, driving up the cost to get on actual departure. This is impacting, again, it's going to impact the American consumer, it seems, but it's impacting American businesses that rely on parts and finished products made in China to come to the United States. They're now not coming. So, Dan, is this community overreacting, or are they foreshadowing a significant recession?
Yes, they're both. I mean, what the street does is they scour data to try to get ahead of the curve. I mean, that's how they try to make money. They try to find things that the average person may not see. And they're famous for looking at satellite images of, coal dispensaries in China to see if stuff is piling up or moving out fast. And what might that mean? There is a lot of worrying data. And I think, we will see. Trump could change his mind on a dime. I think what is also freaking out Wall Street is that they just don't understand what he's trying to achieve and if he's consistent, and that is driving them nuts because they just can't put the pieces together because he changes his mind frequently. So I think there is legitimate concern, but as usual, they're a little over, that data doesn't quite bear it out yet, but it might.
Sean.
I would think that, part of what I thought Dan was going at more is that I think that there's a pattern for the last several decades. We talk tough, we do nothing. And the street and everyone else doesn't know what to do with a guy who's actually willing to take this on. And that's, look, I agree. Trump's playing high stakes poker here. But at the end of the day, as you guys know, I'm in favor of high stakes poker because at some point we either play high stakes poker or we learn Mandarin, but there's no in between. And I'd rather see a leader fight for this. I've noted this before. There's no political upside. The easy thing is to do nothing. Trump's willing to fight, and I think that a lot of people in America are willing to allow him a long leash because they're tired of politicians from both parties telling them, there's nothing I can do.
But Sean, what is he trying to do?
Well, I mean, I think it's mostly trying to get a better deal, especially when it comes to China. I think that's where his head's at. You've heard him again. I go back to what's the consistent message over the last 40 years. I get, to the tweet that Mark read before. I actually like the idea that you've got disparate voices inside the president's inner circle, giving him different takes. But again, go back to what the consistent message has been from Donald Trump going back into the 80s. It's about fairness. It's about market share. Now, do I favor more? I mean, I'm a heck of a lot more hawkish, I think, when it comes to China in particular. But I'll take any of the above. If the result is greater market share in China, and that's the outcome, which I think is what the president really is fighting for, then I'm for that. For me, I come down as not just market share, but I want us to build more in America. I want to be I want to reel back a lot from them. So, but there's none of the things that he mentioned that I'm against. I mean, that I think any conservative is against. I mean, market share, cudgel against China, you name it, I'm for all of it. And I think that at the end of the day, as I said, we're going to continue to see this thing careen towards a big summit, and we'll see what we get. My bigger thing, again, is that China knows how to weasel out of things better than anybody.
Mark,
Yeah,
what do you
and they're patient. Well, so a couple things. First of all, they put out a statement this morning in the wake of yesterday's meeting with the Italian prime minister saying, very, very upbeat, very unified statement. And they said the president is, likely to go to Italy to meet with her there, and that maybe he would meet the European Union officials there as well. So as you sort of think about the futures calendar, it seems like eventually there'll be a meeting with Xi, but perhaps first there'll be a meeting with the Europeans, and if they can unite and maybe get them to cancel the EU trip to Beijing, that might be strengthen the hand in negotiating with China eventually. I'll tell you what people are talking about now, because again, in the financial community, the belief is this can't last. Maybe the damage is not irrevocable; it's significant in their point of view. They're looking for the Supreme Court to strike the tariffs down, and they're wondering.
Not going to happen.
Well, might that you don't know. You don't know it's not. But we see a lot of court activity that's pretty significant. District Court, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court. I think it could happen, but I don't know how long it would take.
So one thing, number one, on we talked about this yesterday. Just to be clear, I think Maloney came out of this thing as a huge winner. She is now seen as not just this Trump whisperer, but the gateway to a European deal. The president was very forward-leaning when it came to talking about a trade deal with the EU. That's a much bigger bilateral agreement than just taking down trade barriers. But secondly, Mark, this goes back to sort of the Trump cases that, whether it's Letitia James or Alvin Bragg, that regardless of what you think about Trump, just the executive power, if Congress has yielded power to the president in the case of trade, and the court wants to intervene and say, we don't think you have this power after Congress has legislated it, there's going to be
But the law he's citing doesn't mention tariffs. So they may show deference to him, but it's certainly not a foregone conclusion, because the law is unclear. The state of California does not have knucklehead lawyers. There is an argument there. Now, will the justices be result oriented? Will they be deferential to executive power? We don't know, but it's not impossible that that's the only way the tariffs end.
No. I don't actually. You're right. I don't disagree with that. I guess what I'm saying is a more bigger existential thing, which is if the court, which by the way, I don't believe that a 6-3 conservative leaning court is going to rule against the power of the executive, that which Congress has given them. They haven't given him the power under the law he cited.
Right.
I get it. I'm just saying.
So I think they're likely to rule with him, but I don't rule out that they might be 5-4 against him. I don't rule it out. It might even be 6-3 against him. And not because they don't like Trump, and not because they don't like tariffs, but because they could say a clear reading of the law he's citing doesn't mention tariffs. All right. New topic. Russia, Ukraine.
New topic.
The Secretary of State out and about overseas talked about a deadline, which is consistent with the previous rhetoric of the administration, but it's getting a lot of attention because he's quite specific about just how short a number of days are left for the administration to make a deal. Please play 109.
Very soon, and I'm talking about a matter of days, not a matter of weeks.
All right. We're going to have it again, or should I just say what he said? You heard what he said. Matter of days. That in a matter of days. Okay, go ahead. A matter of days, there has to be a deal. Okay. And again, that's consistent with what we've heard. But um, Sean, if there's no deal in a matter of days, are they going to extend the deadline? All right, here's Rubio.
Look, go ahead.
Very soon, and I'm talking about a matter of days, not a matter of weeks, whether or not this is the war that can be ended. If it can, we're prepared to do whatever we can to facilitate that and make sure that it happens, that it ends in a durable and just way. If it's not possible, if we're so far apart that this is not going to happen, then I think the president's probably at a point where he's going to say, well, we're done. You know, we'll do what we can on the margins. We'll be ready to help whenever you're ready to have peace. But we're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end.
So not in continue with the endeavor of trying to lead peace talks, but does that also mean, Sean, not continuing the endeavor of sending military and other aid to Ukraine to keep Russia from winning the war?
You know what I read into that? Hey, Zelensky, wake up. Time's ticking.
Right,
I mean,
but,
to me, I get it.
But they're so far, but they're so far apart. They're so far apart, it appears. So
right, but I think part of this is this was getting Zelensky back to the table. I think there's obviously look, Dan, you're right. I mean, obviously Putin as well, but I think part of this was making sure that these guys understood. I mean, the reason I say that is I think that Putin actually wants this to go out, and I think this gets Zelensky to understand that either he can put his lot in with Europe, which is pretty useless, or he can actually realize that there's an opportunity for a deal here.
Okay, but no offense to Marco Rubio, but Marco Rubio saying something on a tarmac is not going to get the parties close enough together to have a deal.
Like, I think that to me was a clarion call. That was pretty big deal to say matter of days.
It is on the face of it, but it's not going to. I think the chances of its success are limited. And again, I ask Dan, let's say there's no progress in the next couple of days. What's the alternative at that point?
I'm surprised, Sean, that you're saying that like Zelensky is the problem here. Putin is the problem. We just talked, I think it was earlier this week or the end of last week, and he's still bombing, sites and still on his front foot.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, Dan. You're right. I guess my point is that there has to be maximum teamwork to say we've got to be willing to make this deal to go against Putin, because if Zelensky's holding back and Europe's not on fully on board, it makes it hard to go at Putin. That's what Putin wants. So just to be clear, I agree. Like part of this though is me saying that Europe and Zelensky need to get the message that either we all go at this together and we take him down, or this is going to go on.
Well, and I think so. So the interesting thing, I'll say two things quickly. One is we've seen a lot of carrots to Putin. Sean, you've said at some point Trump does not like being embarrassed. And in my opinion, he's been humiliated. So where's the stick? What is the stick for Putin? The second thing is we just talked about Trump going to Europe potentially to meet with the Italian prime minister and potentially the EU. This is where the world gets complicated. The EU wants him present and us present to defeat Putin and save Ukraine. Now we're going to beg them, because I think it's interesting Trump's going to them potentially to talk trade, not you're begging me, everyone's calling us, everyone wants in. Like he may be the beggar on the economy and they may exact a price on Ukraine. So I'll be curious how he finesses that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right, let me say something about Marco Rubio. I get questions all the time. Is he angry that Witkoff has got a lot of his portfolio, right? Witkoff is the lead negotiator on Middle East, Russia, Ukraine,
everything,
and Iran. And my answer to that is no, because he's got young kids and he's fine not being on airplanes constantly. However, there's a degree of chaos in this administration's national security process that does not fit well with Marco Rubio's sensibility about how foreign policy is supposed to work. He was the top Republican on the Intelligence Committee. He dealt with these issues in a very organized, mature, adult, rational, organized way. And I'm telling you now that his sensibility about just how chaotic the rest of the apparatus is within his building, but more in the White House at the Pentagon, is leading to the possibility that there will be a change in the national security team. That's what I'm here to report for you today. Sean.
Look, I don't disagree with your analysis, but I will tell you, Marco Rubio watched every episode of season 1.
Correct.
And he saw Rex Tillerson.
Correct.
And he saw Flynn. And he saw Bolton.
I need to respond to you, and I know you're going to agree. I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me. You can watch it on TV, but then when you're cast in season 2 to be in the show, and you're at the table reads, and you're waiting for your paycheck, and you're see what
camera blocking.
You're getting camera blocking. You're getting notes from the producer. Like, that's different than watching it on TV.
That's true. Yeah. I agree, and that's and we'll see.
And I agree with you. And the point you made is super important. He did not go into this thinking he was joining the Eisenhower administration.
But I will say that there's also a big difference between. And there's a story we can get to it about, the dismissal of somebody. We've seen a little of that at DOD. But I guess the difference is Witkoff seems like he plays well with others, right? And look, I mentioned this before. When I was the assistant U.S. trade rep, we had a constant battle with the Treasury Secretary and also with Commerce, because they were like, well, we'll do trade and you guys can come visit the aquarium at the Commerce Department. There's constantly a policy and mission creep issue, but and I think more so in the Trump administration than probably anywhere else. But the one thing is that Steve Witkoff is a guy who plays well with others, and that's at least a little bit different than before with Rex Tillerson. We had a lot of people who were just freelancing.
Yes. Again, the problem, as I understand it, it's not analysis so much as reporting. The problem is not about Witkoff. He's fine with Witkoff. Right. Witkoff does play well with those. The problem is the degree of chaos and disorganization is shocking to the sensibilities of someone like Marco Rubio, who's used to rules and order and like some sense of organization and like people communicating. So, Dan.
I think what's interesting, because Sean, you referenced the story that's kind of dominating in conservative media a little bit this morning about the staffer that Rubio ran out that oversaw the USAID chopping. Look, I think in my opinion, Rubio join the administration to try to ingratiate himself with MAGA to run in 2028 or 2032? Like, it is a weakness for him.
Well, but the Senate can be a frustrating place.
Sure.
Right. And also it's pretty cool to be the Secretary of State.
Well, it is, but I think he sees a longer runway for himself. And as you say, he didn't want to sit around the Senate for 40 years, and he's thinking about the future. What's interesting is you sense MAGA still doesn't like him, doesn't trust him. And so there is chaos. There are people out for him, it sounds like. And you just wonder, does he come out of this more harmed than helped by going in for his future?
So he is one of the first prominent establishment Republicans ever to have MAGA come after him, because they came after him when he tried to do a bipartisan immigration bill that had and talked about a path to legal status, right?
I worked with him on that.
Okay. So he's been through it, and his reaction to that was to go super MAGA. Right. Basically say no more bipartisan immigration efforts, et cetera. And then to join the administration, be very supportive of the president. This is less for him, even though he's being hit ideologically. This is less for him, as I understand it, about ideology, to quote the Michael Dukakis line, than it is about competence. There's just simply a level of dysfunction in this foreign policy apparatus that, as I understand it, he finds shocking. Okay, we'll see what the implications of that are. All right.
By the way, I will say this, just, Dan, you referencing the story that's in Politico, there was a guy who was charged with, executing on the USAID firings and whatever. I will tell you, I think that was overhyped by Politico in terms of that guy didn't get fired just because Marco Rubio,
right, exactly.
Like the PPO team, and this is not, without getting into it, there are a few other departments where there is a similar person that is there that I wouldn't be surprised in other places where there's one or two people that are not playing by the rules, not coloring within the lines, that I think might be pushed out. But PPO, the Presidential Personnel Office, signed off on that. That was not just a straight up headshot.
Rogue. Exactly. All right. Again, if you want to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. Kilmar Abrego Garcia remains in El Salvador, but he did get to visit late last night. You can roll in these photos, please, number 106, with Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. We also had last night, we talked about it on 2-8 tonight, the Court of Appeals decision that broke relatively late yesterday, saying the 3-judge panel, including unanimously written by a Reagan appointee nominee, very concerned that the administration is potentially, arguably, clearly, depending on your point of view, violating the orders of the court. So that's a big concern for them. This guy is never coming back. If he does come back, he'll never be free in the United States. He will either be in a prison in El Salvador, he'll be in a prison in the United States, or he will be sent to some third country. And the Democrats continue to celebrate him, call him by his first name, talk about how important it is to bring him home. Heather Cox Richardson wrote this morning about how she said he's in the country, in the United States legally, she said. And there is just a great belief on the left that championing him, not championing due process or respect for the rule of law, but championing him is the right thing to do. That is not the view of the Trump administration, of the politics of this. Put up 111, please. The president this morning, in reaction to Chris Van Hollen's trip, posted this on Truth Social. Chris Van Hollen of Maryland looked like a fool yesterday, standing in El Salvador begging for attention from the fake news media or anyone grandstander. There's also a White House War Room tweet just now showing the president meeting with the mother of the slain Maryland woman killed by someone in the country illegally, juxtaposed with a photo of Van Hollen meeting with Garcia. And then, of course, Stephen Miller on Fox News last night made clear how he sees this issue. Please play 108B.
Sean, we've reached a point in American politics.
All right. Stand by.
Sean, we've reached a point in American.
All right. We'll wait for that. Go ahead and put up 108A. And we'll see the tweet. I can read what he said. We've reached a point in American politics where we have one party led by the president that fights for Americans and a second party, I guess, led by AOC that fights for illegal aliens, but not just illegal aliens, criminal, wife-beating, terrorist illegal aliens. The Democrats continue to take issue with the increasingly detailed reports that this guy was, as Donald Trump might say, a bad hombre. Okay? Now, whether you want to say quibble with the details of is he a wife beater? Is he a terrorist? Is he a trafficker? Is he a gang member? Democrats seem inclined to continue to quibble with those details. I know, Dan, you don't think that's a good idea. But in general, Dan, how are you feeling in the wake of the Van Hollen trip and the Court of Appeals ruling? How are you feeling about where your party is on this matter?
Politically, we are losing. And I think most people don't pay that much attention to this. I think Stephen Miller's, frame, as much as he and how he did it drives me nuts, is probably what is penetrating to the average kind of attentive viewer. But I will say within the party, man, people are digging in and just do not want to give. I think in the last couple weeks, the party backbone is stiffening. Like the resistance, it's not 2017, but it is reforming. The fact that you have Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and all these people coming out and they're not apologizing. Like the Clintons are pretty attentive to the wins of, the middle class in the middle of the country. I just think the party's like enough. And so not the case I would, want to hang my hat on, but I give the party credit. They're just like, we're not taking this anymore.
Is there a way, Dan, to get off of a celebration of this guy, but still, as there were going to be protests this weekend, is there a way to get off this guy, but still champion the rule of law and due process and American values? Is that possible?
Yes. The Trump people are going to keep deporting folks, keep rounding people up. And I think if they slip up a little bit and they get somebody who shouldn't be detained, that is who I would put front and center. So, hopefully they can kind of move to a different example, because I think the principle is still right, but we need a better public face for this.
Sean, I know what you think the politics of this are, because I know, but where do you think we're headed on this? I mean, it'll be a huge topic with Van Hollen on the shows, so it's going to be a huge topic over the weekend. But is this a story next week, or is it a story until his fate is resolved?
So a couple of things. Let's talk about, I'll start with the media coverage. First of all, remember we started with this Atlantic story about a Maryland man, a father, a loving father. This, again, I think there's a media component to this of the level of misinformation and lies that have been spread about who this individual is and the degree to which there's a cover up. We'll see what Van Hollen faces this weekend. I expect kid gloves coming from all four of the shows that'll be on. This is Jennifer Vasquez's sworn statement. That's his wife. Sworn statement. Okay, talking about how she's scared of him because he hit her. This is the Democratic Party that said that we should believe all women. This is a senator who refused to call the mother of a victim of illegal immigration who left four children, who refused to call him but rushed to El Salvador to defend a gang member that's a female abuser. That's the state of the Democratic Party today.
Yeah.
Talk about supporting all women. You support a guy who's in the country illegally, a member of a gang, has a deportation order, and his own wife says that he hit her in a sworn statement with the court. What happened to believing all women?
Although she's, if you want to believe her, she's tried to change her statement and what she claims she entered a statement.
What do you mean if I want? Wait, hold on. If I want to believe her, first of all, it's a sworn statement. Second of all,
but
Democrats.
I'm saying is,
hold on. But the Democrats
she's
say
taking it back. But I'm saying if you want to believe all, if you're going to throw believe all women in their face, her current position is that she had a bad previous relationship and she filed a statement that went beyond the actual facts at the time, and the family is reconciled, and she doesn't want to make that an issue.
Maybe, or maybe she's scared of him.
Correct.
But I mean, you know, the point is,
or maybe she just wants him back. But I don't totally disagree with you, but at all.
But I mean, this is the lot. Yeah. This is a good Maryland family man that we've been told we're supposed to be supporting. Yeah. I mean, Mark, this is just, once again, Hunter Biden's laptop, the Steele dossier, the lengths to which the left and the media go to lie and spread misinformation. The Democrats have cast their lot with him. You talk about where this thing goes from here. This is going to, by next week, it's going to be, oh, let's find a new topic to go after Trump on, because they blew it on this one. This is a PR stunt gone very bad.
Well, hold on a sec, Sean. They lost 9-0 at the Supreme Court. So
no. That's a misreading. It's a misreading of the ruling.
Sorry, Counselor.
They did not lose 9-0 at the Supreme Court. Court
said you must facilitate his return.
And they also said you got to show and they also said you got to show deference at the district court level to the prerogatives of the president in conducting foreign policy.
I hear you, but they said,
Dan, they didn't lose 9-0 at the Supreme Court. Just not true. But Dan, let me ask,
how would you define the 9-0 ruling then?
They said you have to facilitate his return, but you've got to show deference to the president in conducting foreign policy. We got to move on. I just want to ask you one more question, though, Dan. Is there anyone in the Democratic Party? Let's assume that our shared analysis, because we all have the shared analysis that the Democrats, they're not just championing the rule of law. They're calling him by his first name. They're treating him like he's an American resident, and he needs to be brought home triumphantly to be reunited with his family, okay? And they're not saying anything about it's unfortunate because he seems to be a bad guy. So if that's a bad move politically, okay, if it is there anyone in the party who could enforce that and say, you know what, guys, we should stop celebrating this guy, assuming that's the right position? And I think that's the consensus of everyone I know in Republican or Democratic politics who has a point of view. So is there anybody, could the party chair, could Chuck Schumer? Like it seems to run amok. And again, it's not helping them. It's not helping this gentleman, I don't believe. And it's not helping hold Donald Trump accountable for disregarding the court orders, because they're making it all about this guy. So the White House can make it all about this guy. So is there anyone who could change the trajectory and say, this guy's a bad guy, but the principle still holds, rather than having cocktails with him and talking about how important it is to bring him back home to a country he came to illegally?
I think our friend Jeff Pollack at Global Strategy Group, who's one of the leading pollsters in the party, is probably one of the few people. Look, I think if they
Jeff Pollack can't do anything.
But Mark,
he's a wise and powerful man.
We love Jeff, but his data, look, I think most of these people, if they see data, and I would imagine by this Sunday, we will start to see some data about what Americans think about.
You won't see media data that will sway Democrats, because the polls will all be done by a bunch of liberals in the media who aren't going to.
That's not true.
They're not going to tease out the core issue. I guarantee you, Dan. I guarantee you there will be no dispositive polling. I doubt they'll even ask the question: is this guy a bad guy? Well, I doubt they'll ask it.
Mark, then would Fox News not have an interest in putting data out to spike the football? I'm sure that.
There's not a lot of polling going on about this stuff. They're just not.
Not a lot. You asked me. I'm
asking. Okay, but I'm not asking you. I'm saying, who's the person in the party who could say, this is insane, everybody, let's get on a Zoom and stop celebrating this guy?
He can't answer. He's that
Dan
question just froze him.
Not me.
Froze him.
All right, raise your hand if you want to. Raise your hand if you want in the conversation. Somebody take a screen grab of that thing.
He's thinking. He's thinking.
Sean, do your winners, losers, and what to look for while we wait for Dan to come back.
My winner of the week. I'm gonna awarded this week to the U.S. Naval Academy. They were at the White House for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, and I normally wouldn't go to that level, but I think you never know when you're going to be back again. So congratulations, Navy, beat Army.
All right, loser of the week.
Loser of the week is PR stunts on the left. I think the Blue Origin stunt that Jeff Bezos tried to pull out was an absolute disaster. The more that comes out, you're seeing even Hollywood turn against this ridiculous little stunt that Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez tried to pull off. I mean, it was cute and they blew it. And obviously, we just talked about Senator Van Hollen. So, look, as a lover of PR stunts, I was a little disappointed. I love a good earned media trick, but they were both clearly too well thought of. No one did the math on how to pull them off correctly. So my loser is left-wing PR stunts.
Okay. And what are you looking for this weekend?
Quiet. It's Easter. I think that this is actually probably may be the first actual quiet weekend. The vice president's abroad. The president will celebrate Easter. So I actually think this might be the first weekend that we don't have a flurry of activity.
Okay.
And then also I will look at how they treat Van Hollen. I mean, that's going to be interesting, whether it's a pivot and talk about the budget now that he's, blown himself up on this issue. But whether or not these so-called journalists actually hold him accountable will be fascinating.
All right. Are we getting Dan back? Oh, here's Dan. Let's see if we can get him back. My winner is China. My loser is Chris Van Hollen's communications director. And what I'm looking for this weekend is a lower pollen count. What I'm looking for is a lower pollen.
Is there a lot of pollen in New York?
My
really?
God. It's
Do you guys have trees?
It's like a factory. I live across the street from a park, and it is pollen-y, very pollen-y. I'm dressed like that. I'm dressed like this in part because this is as much as I could deal with putting something on without just inflamed. Is Dan back? Dan, are you back? Let's see. All right, Dan.
Oh,
welcome
there
back.
he is.
Dan,
you
missed our winners and losers, so it'll be like the dating game. You'll have to just say yours and see if they match up. Winner of the week, winner of the week, loser of the week, and what you're looking for this weekend, sir.
Sorry, the power just went out in our house. Happy Friday.
Oh.
My winner is the White House press team because they are winning the Garcia case. My loser is MAGA because Scott Bessent is winning on the trade issue. And I think that some of the powers that be in the coalition do not like this and where it may be headed. And then what to watch for is, does MAGA start going at Scott Bessent? Okay. You saw Laura Lomer when.
Oh, Dan's gone again. All right.
Hey, Mark, but aside from being Good Friday too, I wanted Jack in the chat noted that today is also the 250th anniversary this evening of Paul Revere's ride. So just a little historical piece of data that's from the chat. No smack there, just straight facts.
2th by land. All right, Phoebe, welcome in. We haven't seen you in a while. Very grateful to see you and your little cute child. Bring him back if you can. But welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
Yeah, I'm in London, and
that's very appropriate. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. The British are coming. You're right here.
Exactly, and the pollen count here is also really high.
Yeah,
I've never had hay fever, but this year it's been I just got it really bad. So
yeah,
I totally empathize.
I was in London a few weeks ago, and it was bad. I don't know what's going on. Tell us what's on your mind, and thank you for joining.
So I haven't been on for a while, but I always watch the clips on YouTube. But this is a question specifically for Sean, but for all of you, because it's kind of a general question. Because Sean's had daily contact with Trump, but I'd just like to know, do you think is Trump particularly well read? Like, I'm just wondering how deep a thinker he is. Like, specifically, I'm thinking about China and the tariffs, and I'm wondering, like, how much does he think about? Does he take the long view of Chinese history, the century of humiliation, and the kind of relationship with with the staunch intransigence right now? Because I think, and I guess more broadly, does it even matter if a president is particularly well read or not?
Yeah, those are great questions. I'd love to know if he could explain the concept of saving face or face. Be curious to know. Sean, is the president well read, and does it matter? Great questions.
I think the question is he well informed? And I think part of the story we talk, and I say that respectfully because I mean, the level, even when I was there the other day, there was a very robust discussion going on several issues among 6 or 7 staffers and he was probing them. It's very Trump. That's how he is. Everybody comes in and he starts going, do you agree with that? Do you agree? Why? Why not? Boom, 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 boom. That's just, and so I actually, and as a guy that learns very similar, like I actually am much more visual and auditory than I am. I mean, I enjoy reading, but I think I can, when I am able to bounce questions and he literally will fill the Oval Office and ping people off each other. Do you agree with that? Why not? What do you, why do you not? I mean, and I actually think that it's a very healthy way for a president to look at decision making. He doesn't walk in saying, I'm doing this. So does he gets briefed all the time on a national security level. He gets a PBD, presidential daily briefing. But then he also literally encourages folks of all sorts. In fact, I mean, again, I've been part of this where on the staff side and then on the non-staff side, where you hear about Trump all the time asking people, what do you think? Hey, Phoebe, let me ask you about blah, 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 blah. Or Mark, you heard what, I mean, like, he is very engaging on a whole host of issues. So is he well informed? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Phoebe, what do you think of the tariffs?
What do I think about the tariffs? Well, I mean, I'm happy we're not affected in England.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, I mean, yeah, finally prices here are actually better, I think, than the US. They're going to be better than the US. So it doesn't affect me personally that much. I think it's a really, I mean, it was really audacious. I think it's like, I'm just astounded kind of by the audaciousness of it. And I just think there's just no way that China can back down. I mean, in terms of saving face, in terms of standing up, like always considering itself a superior civilization, never wanting to be kind of below anybody, backing down. I just don't see how. Yeah.
I agree with you. I'll just say, and I think Sean agrees with this, the president has such high human intelligence. He is so good at reading people. And Joe Biden has known Xi for much longer than Donald Trump has known Xi. But I have no doubt that if success for America in this trade war is dependent on Donald Trump understanding Xi, his motives, the pressure points, the weaknesses, the strengths, I have no doubt that the U.S. is well served in that respect, because he's very good at reading people. But there's a lot of history there that's part of it that I would not say the president's a China scholar. How about that?
But Phoebe, when the president and senior officials get briefed, the intelligence community will come in and
right.
really give you an understanding of that person, their motives. So it's not just, here's what we want, here's what you should get. It's here's their weaknesses, here's their strengths, here's how they've acted in the past. So you come in and it's a dossier on how to deal with that person, their background, their previous negotiations, the success that some people have had. So you walk into a meeting, any meeting, frankly, especially with another world leader, very, very well prepared. Now, whether, and like I said, and then you get your own staff take on that as well.
Yeah. Dan, welcome back. Phoebe, thank you. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Good to have you here. Amy, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
Hi, I'm in Very Polony, Virginia. And this is not what we're talking about, but I think that the parents of kids with autism across America are losing their minds. And I just wanted to share a book that my book club read in January, a book of beautiful, dare I say, poetic essays by non-speaking autistic young adults, edited by a non-speaking young adult with autism at the University of Virginia. I'm outraged, I'm sad, I'm beside myself, really. And it's a very big deal to me. Head Start is also a very big deal to me, but the lack of respect, the lack of understanding,
on the part of whom?
Kennedy.
Okay.
Kennedy tweeting about people with autism will never write a poem, will never have any value in their life. It was the most dismissive thing, and I'm furious.
Yeah, understood.
Anyway, I recommend the book.
And I've heard that from several people and read about it, obviously. Go ahead, Sean, and then Dan.
Amy, I'm curious. Like I read some of the clips. I didn't see the whole speech that Bobby gave. So I want to be careful how I judge it, because I did see some of the clips, but knowing how I've seen the media do things in the past, before I comment, I need to go back and see a lot more. That being said, okay, let's just for 1 second say that the perception of some of the comments that he used weren't the best, okay, in terms of how he framed things. When you say you're upset, what I find fascinating is that I think that he's the first person that I've seen that's willing to actually tackle, as Kamala Harris would call, the root causes of autism. And are you at least excited about that, or take comfort in that, or do you think he's off base in that as well?
I'm open to conversations about good science around autism. Of course I am.
Okay. I guess what I'm getting at is that when you look at a chart of autism in the past 30 years, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, correct?
Sure.
Okay. And yet no one that I'm aware of, and I'm that close to the issue, probably you're much closer. I'm not aware of anyone taking a serious look at what's responsible for the growth in autism.
Oh, I invite you into the conversation.
Okay, so what's
and I invite him
the only
too.
thing the only thing that I can hear is that genetics are an issue, and it seems to me that's a bit of a scapegoat on the issue to say that genetics are causing something to grow exponentially without any cause or gene mutation or anything like that that would seem to account for it. So what am I missing in this discussion?
I think that you're missing that Kennedy said categorically, people with autism have a lower quality of life, and their potential and their current functioning is monolithic and of less value.
Did he use the word monolithic, or that's your word?
That's totally my word.
Okay. Just making sure I'm not being critical.
Right, but Amy, I guess what I'm trying to get at is separate the two, right? So separate the speech from the search for an understanding is probably the best way to put it. If you can separate the speech he gave the other day from his overall goal.
If his conception of people with autism is that they are lesser than, that is his frame for how he is going about looking at causes of autism. I think that the parents of kids with autism, adults with autism, adult friends of mine with autism, don't consider themselves to be damaged goods, don't consider their lives to be less than. Yeah. So his perspective matters.
I want to let Dan in, but let me just say, the guy speaks imprecisely with some regularity. Okay. His heart is in the following, I believe. We need more research to understand it. We need more research. We need to devote more time to understanding this, to figure out what's gone on. And that's a positive. And I can understand why his words are hurtful, because he does speak imprecisely. But I think if you actually ask him to slow down and say more clearly what he thinks, I think you'd be less upset, would be my guess. Dan.
Yeah, I think part of the worry that people have in the autism community is, does RFK have a answer? And he is seeking data to support his fixed point of view, which is that vaccinations cause this. There is a school of thought, Sean, that one of the reasons autism and stuff like colon cancer are rising is that there is more awareness. More people are now being tested. And so we are finding out that that people have it, but in fact, it's always been very present. It was just called other things or not diagnosed, et cetera. That may not be the answer, but that is one school of thought in the scientific community. I think if RFK or those around him are really going to lead a let the science take us where it takes us, it would give more comfort. But I think a lot of people believe he knows the outcome he wants.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. Amy, thank you. Very, very grateful to you for raising it and for raising it the way you did. Thank you. All right. Clara, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you live and what's on your mind. And after you unmute, and thank you for joining. You're unmuted. Go ahead, Clara.
Thanks a lot. Clara Jones, Silver Spring, Maryland, registered Democrat. Just two really quick things. Mark, I was in a popular Ethiopian restaurant a couple of days ago, listening to 6 o'clock, and a man walked up to me and said, "Oh, is that about politics? That sounds interesting." And so I told him about two-way and the morning meeting. But the other thing I wanted to say, I'm 80, almost 82 now, and I wanted to bring seniors into the conversation. I know the international story is important, but I live in a senior building. Some of us live, I don't, but some of us live week to week, month to month. A lot of us have 401ks. Some of us are wealthy, of course, that's not me. But the point is, we're really worried. Some of us are hurting, and most of us, if not all of us, are on medication, and we're concerned about tariffs on the pharmaceutical industry. That's all I had to say.
Okay. Clara, thank you for promoting two-way in your community and in the Ethiopian place. That's very, very generous of you. Dan, speak to Clara's concern about 401ks for people who are already retired, for prescription drug prices, and the uncertainty that tariffs are causing that older people, are going to be concerned about.
Yeah, it's real. And we always talk about the real lives of real people. And I think this is something that one of the things you're seeing in the news is that some people are starting to hoard prescriptions because they're worried that they won't be able to get them in a month or so. You hear about it with other goods that people rely on for their daily lives that are imported. So I think this is an issue that Democrats are right to highlight. They are right to ask the president, what is your plan to alleviate these stresses on everyday life? And I'll be curious to see where it goes.
Sean.
Obviously this is I'm very sensitive to this. I've got, an older parent. But there's a lot of people who are like yourself, Clara, that are on a fixed income that depend on this stuff. So I get it. It's sort of like the conversation we have about Doge. I'm sensitive to anybody losing their job, whether they work in the private sector or for the government. I mean, people who go into government service in a lot of majority of cases go in for the right reason. And I don't want someone, they have children or who cares, just themselves, to have to lose a job. But I guess sometimes there's a question of what's the greater good. And as I've said before, obviously we minimize the disruption, but we've got some real problems in this country, right? The programs that you rely on right now are not in a good place, and politicians keep kicking the can down the road. Our debt is not in a good place. Our military and industrial base is not in a good place. Our trade is not in a good place. And so at some point, we either stand up and fight for what's right and do things differently, or we just keep kicking the can down the road and hope that we're not the ones that get tagged when the time is up. So no. So all I'll say is, like, I appreciate it. And I hope that you and your community there and everybody else faces minimal disruption. But I guess the answer is, if it's at some point, somebody is going to be the one in musical chairs without a chair.
But I think the problem is Trump did not run on that. He did not say we're going to have a period of pain for this transition,
including for seniors.
Right. And so I think that the problem, Sean, is everything that you say, I think most Americans agree with. But if you ask them, are you willing to bear extraordinarily higher prices and shorted supplies of goods for a year to 2 years while everyone reshores? I do not think the country would vote for that. So that is your problem. How do you not disrupt people's lives, the real lives of real people who just want to go about their day?
But Dan, I guess that's my point. You're absolutely right. At some point, though, the question is, who will face that? Because we can either go through a period in which we right the ship, or you continue to go out to sea and say, the storm's coming. I just don't know who's going to get hit with it.
Well, but the other way to look at that, Sean, is, and I keep going back to this, you're asking 65, 70% of the country to bear the burden to fix it for 30, 35%. That is not a winning strategy in politics. Never has been.
Clara, we're so grateful to you for coming on, and we hope you have a great weekend, and we hope you'll come back soon. Haley, welcome in. Tell folks where you are who don't know and what's on your mind, please.
Hi, guys. Happy holidays.
Haley.
And to you.
And I'm from Dallas. I'm actually soon coming back to New York, so that's exciting. And I basically just have two things to say. One is connected to the two-way communities. Clara reminded me that I also had a run-in with community member this week. I work at the local JCC here, and one of the members came up to me and basically said to me, "Does the name Mark Halperin mean anything to you?" And so he recognized me from the platform, and it just shows that we have the best community really out there. So I just want
Awesome.
to mention
Thank you.
that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Clip it. Send it out.
And so basically, the only thing that I have to say, because we were talking about the immigration that the guy everybody's freaking out about, and I just have to say this, is that I wish Democrats and Republicans were talking about Idan Alexander, the New Jersey resident who is still captive by Hamas for 559 days.
Yep.
And I really wish that everybody was talking about him, because he is an American citizen and he's still there. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you
Haley,
for
can I
that.
ask you a question?
Please.
How do you feel about the news that Trump waved Israel off attacking Iran and is seeking to negotiate with them?
I'm not happy, but I'm also not one of the Israelis that is happy with the war. I do believe that this war should have ended a very long time ago. I don't believe that we should be continuing. I understand Trump's vision for peace, and I am mostly on board with that. But I feel when it comes to the Middle East, there's a lot that people don't understand about the region, and that some things are missing. And I don't think that the IRGC is a regime that can be negotiated with.
Haley, thank you for that. Thank you for coming on. Dan will pick you up at the airport, so send him your flight information.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Laura, welcome in. We just a few minutes left, but wanted to get you in. Grateful to you always for joining. So let's tell folks from Long Island what's on your mind.
Long Island. All right, really quick. Back to Kilmar. So if any Democrat asked me for advice, I would just be wary of the polls because they can be wrong. I've had that experience myself, and even the best guys can be wrong. I think focusing on the issue of due process is always a better idea than focusing on a person, because you can dig up crap on everyone. I mean, all of us are fallible in some way. And so make it about due process, and make it about America. Make it a patriotic issue, because that is what it is. I mean, after we talked about this the other day, I went back and I read the Constitution, and I saw that actually people living here who came illegally do have some due process rights. So let's get back to the fundamentals. This is a crazy idea that I'm going to leave you with. But you know those "We the People" t-shirts with the font of the Constitution and all of that? I think, why not take that back? Why not be the party? Why not be the people who really do stand for the Constitution for we the people?
Hillary Clinton and Dan would both agree with you on that.
Yeah, just not here. I think this is like Willie Horton, Michael Dukakis.
Yeah. Also, I think it's really tough to spend 4 years weaponizing the judicial system and then pivot to due process.
Yeah,
Trump's
the thing
helping
is,
us with that.
I feel that I can say this because I'm not running for anything. I'm not advising. I'm not consulting. I don't want a job from anyone in politics. So I feel like I can actually speak from the heart, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Laura, thank you. Love having you on. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Well, first of all, one quick thing we didn't get to. We talked about the court real quick. The really interesting that the court ruled that they're going to hear this case on birthright citizenship. I think at some point this could be huge. Just the idea that they're taking it, I think, is a win for Trump.
It's a bunch of cases, including the tariff case, and we don't know when the court will take these cases in every case, when they'll hear them, and how quickly they'll turn these opinions around. And it's vitally important. And I urge fast track. Rocket docket. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
Well, yeah, hopefully they space him out, because we can only talk about so much on an hour-long show. So if any of the justices are listening, could you guys think about scheduling these things appropriately for the show? Tonight, Andrew Klavan is on the show. It's Good Friday. He's got a brand new book out about finding the goodness in the dark. We're going to talk a lot about, obviously, what's going on with tariffs and and this Abrego case, but then we'll also get into some of the great insights that he has on the state of our culture today. Andrew Klavan just never disappoints when it comes to culture, and like I said, of all days to talk about God, this is the weekday that you want to do it.
All right, on two-way tonight, Batjang or Sargon will be on, two-way fan favorite, and we're going to have a special show. We'll do all the news today, but we're going to have a special show, particularly for Democrats. So if you're a Democrat and you're listening, please join tonight. We're going to talk about peace, love, and understanding and how folks are grappling with Trump 2.0 and the challenges, both political and practical, but also emotional, that some people are feeling, including people who say this platform they don't feel is welcoming. They feel like it's not welcoming enough for Democrats, and it's something we strongly disagree with, and we try our best to convince folks that that's not the case. So if you're a Democrat, please come on tonight. We have some voices I think you'll appreciate hearing to try to figure out how you can be part of the conversation, not just on two-way, but in your community, in other places where you can be part of being on the national town square, not afraid, not feeling overwhelmed, but expressing your beliefs and your desires for making a more perfect union. So please join us tonight. And as I say on a regular basis now, if you're watching on YouTube and you've never subscribed to the two-way channel, please do that. Okay, we want as many subscribers as we can get for all sorts of reasons. So please, if you've never subscribed to the YouTube channel, go on YouTube, twoway.tv, and click subscribe. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Great week here. One more show tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I will see you then. And the three of us will see you Monday morning in 9 a.m. also, right here on Two-Way. Gentlemen.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter. Have a great weekend. We'll see you. I'll see you tonight at 6, and then we'll see you Monday morning. Thank you so much.